Before us tonight, we have a number of matters. The first three listed on the agenda are administrative, and I'm going to hold those until the end of the meeting and try to get through these applications before we get to that. The first item on the agenda is case number 2176 on behalf of Holy Camoli LLC. Ben, are you on the line? No, all right. Counsel Ben Zender informed me today that there's a chance he could not be here at 7, and he asked to be taken at the end of the meeting. Insofar as he's only here at this meeting because we didn't have a quorum for him last meeting, I feel some obligation to accommodate his request. And so I'm going to move to the next matter for our attention. Let me begin by saying my name is Jerry Mulligan. I'm chairman of the ZBA. With me are the 4 regular members of the board, Vice Chairman Lynn Eicholt, Matthew Cole, Emily Van Giesen, and Bruce Taub. Also with us is Tom Evers, building commissioner for the town. And I don't know if our secretary is with us. Stacy, are you here? But anyway, we're being recorded. So I'd like to call case number 217, Herbert B. Kinney, relative to applying for a variance for the property at 247 Cranberry Highway. Mr. Kinney, I see you're here. So I can make a presentation to us. Mr. Kinney, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can now. Yes. Thank you.
First of all, I will apologize if I look this way. I'm looking at a larger monitor. I'm using my regular laptop as a server. I will try to look at you so you can see my face.
Well, whatever works for you is fine with us, Mr. Kinney.
But the information will come across regardless. Okay, I'm Dr. Herbert B. Kinney. I live at 249 Cranberry Highway in Orleans. I am making application to the board for relief under section 164-20 from the minimum area required for residential use within a general business zone. I bought the property 247 Cranberry Highway in 1978. At that time, the property was larger than it is now, and I will get to that in a minute. The structure originally built on the property was built in 1947 by Paul Smith, a local builder. It was his family home until I purchased it from his estranged wife in 1978, at which time it was converted to a dental office where I practiced and had an active practice in that building until 2013. There was no major alteration made to the building except the addition of a front desk or the front deck and entryway and a wheelchair ramp. The footprint of the house remained the same while it was a dental office. It is the same at this point in time, and there is no plan for any major construction at all on the building. After converting to a dental office after 1 year, prior to being a dental office, it was pre-existing non-conforming. And after 1 year as a dental office, it reverted back to its original zoning, which was general business. In 1992, the property was subdivided according to a plan of which you have a plot plan, small plot plan showing the subdivision. wait, except before I go into that, Mr. Mulligan, I believe, was out here this afternoon. We walked around the property um, because he was a little confused about some things. So I don't want to confuse you. I want you to be very clear as to what actually is going on here. Okay. In 1985, due to family situation, I wanted to build a residence on the back of the property. At the time, there was no major problem with doing that, and the residential lot line went through the property, and the house was situated within the residential zone of that property, which was all one property, 247. We discovered after a building permit had been issued by Les Morse, the building inspector, that that line was improperly drawn by the town. And when the proper line was drawn, there was not enough room for the house to be contained within the residential area of the lot, the residentially zoned area of the lot. So the planning board considered the issue and gave me a variance to build a single family dwelling up in the back part of that lot. And they specifically stated I could put the house, after the variance was granted, I could put the house anywhere on the lot I wanted to put it. But we put it as far back as we could get it by maintaining the setbacks. At this point in time, 247 was all one lot. In 1992, I was informed that the land could be subdivided. I didn't think it could, but because both parcels were general business zoned, there was no lot size requirement at the time. Therefore, the lot was subdivided into two lots. The front lot being 247, which I will refer to as the office or the dental office, and 249, which was the lot containing the house up behind it. Of course, after the subdivision, which occurred 30 years ago, the reason for that variance has now become mute with a change in bylaw a year ago by the town of Orleans, and a residence is permitted on a lot, even though the lot is not 40,000 square feet, but it's pre-existing non-conforming in that relationship. The lot was subdivided, but in order to subdivide the lot, it was necessary to create a panhandle to give the necessary frontage on the Cranberry Highway or Route 6A. Therefore, the only side that the panhandle could go down was on the western side. Therefore, lot size was favored with a residential portion of the lot, which became 249. And there being no minimum lot size requirement, the lot for the dental office was made smaller. There was an easement granted to the business, to the dental office, to the office from the house for a lower parking area, which sat right smack dab in the middle of the panhandle, that was necessary for commercial, the commercial use of 247. And that easement for use and ingress and egress was granted. Then we needed to replace the septic system in the office. The town wanted, as part of the septic system, to have a leach field instead of a leach pit. There was not room on the property for the leach field. Therefore, the home property, again, granted an easement to the office property for the septic system and for the reserve for the septic system. I mention those two easements because that gave a significant more amount of land for the use of the office property, even though the office property, although its actual borders and size did not change. And that was done in 1992. Again, the house, or the structure sitting on the office property, is the original structure built in 1947. The setbacks on the western line don't conform to residential, but that's where the house was put in 1947, okay? And it has remained intact with the same footprint throughout the entire tenure as a dental office that it had as a residence. Actually, at this point in time, though the application requested that all information regarding to any board action taken on the property be included in the application, the 249 now is an abutting property. It is not the property in question tonight. The only property in question is the office property, which is 247. And I would consider 247 with a consideration for the addition of the easements, which adds approximately another 4,500 square feet to the use of the office property, even though it does not actually become a part of that property. We are all aware that there exists a tremendous housing shortage in Orleans, especially for lower cost and elderly housing. Dealing with this problem, as you are well aware, the town of Orleans has now changed its bylaw to permit residential use in the general business zone to help encourage and develop this type of housing. This town hardship is very relative to me as I now move to downsides in retirement and find suitable, affording housing that meets my future needs. Therefore, I am requesting relief from the 40,000 square foot rule, realizing that everything that is down there in some form is pre-existing, including the fact that when the lots were subdivided, there was no general business requirement for size of lots. If I had foreseen this coming, we may have split the lot more evenly, but neither lot still would have been up to 40,000 square feet, as there are multiple properties in my area that do not conform to 40,000 square feet, one being a condominium of 3 properties up behind me, and another one being a low-cost housing project that went in to the west of me that is 4 units built on, I think it's 2 acres of land, but I'm not sure of that. Tom, you would know that probably better than I would know that.
Actually, I'm not sure myself. I'd have to do some research.
Right. But the granting of this variance would in no way change or affect the neighborhood. In fact, a passerby will not even know that there has been a change. The property area of the office lot is small. I realize that. But the area that the office with its easements utilizes is actually the exact same area that was used by the house in 1947 and has remained as such as a dental office, et cetera, et cetera. So it really makes no change to the area. There will be no essential change in septage because the dental office did not create more septage than a residence would create. And there will be no change in noise. There really is no effect on the neighborhood, and the properties, both the house and the office, will remain zone general business. And if the residential use in either one is given up for a year, I believe it reverts to the original zoning. I'm not sure of that, but I believe it reverts to the original zoning. I do believe in my office, with time, the better use will be commercial and office, because right now we're in a time when commercial property is in a slump, et cetera. And I found that out because my home and office have been on the market and there has not been much interest. But when I was advised, or when it was suggested to me by town officials that this might be a solution, they did not preclude the board in any way saying that you would grant it, but they did not speak against it. And especially the town planner was very helpful in putting the application and everything together. So basically, it would be a financial hardship, but more a personal hardship, for me to leave the property, both properties, quickly, moving into the house or into the office, which is all on one floor, which has good access to the street and everything, would be tremendously beneficial and helpful to me. Finding a condo at this point in time in Orleans is very difficult. I've been an Orleans resident now for very close to 50 years. I love Orleans. I'd like to stay here in town. And this is probably the best way for me to accomplish it. So I hope you will consider my application and grant me permission to reconvert the dental office to a private home, or to a home as it once was, and to give me relief from the 4,000 square foot requirement of the bylaw. And I'm available for any questions. Mr. Mulligan, you did have a question about the variance on the home property.
Yes, sir.
There was a copy of that variance included in the application. It is actually, in my opinion, it becomes a moot point, because that's not the piece of property we're talking about at this point. And the piece of property that we are talking about at this point was established 30 years ago in 1992.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kinney. I was delinquent in beginning this meeting by not asking whether anybody on the board has had conversations with Mr. Kinney or otherwise considered impartial on this application. I should say that I went there this afternoon because after reading the application, I had no understanding what was going on. I couldn't really envision the property with the materials that we were given. So I went there, and in the course of looking at the property, Mr. Kinney came up and explained it to me.
If I might say one thing,
Sure.
Mr. Mulligan was very careful not to compromise himself. I served on the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners for 5 years and just got off it. And I understand conflicts and conflict of interest. And in my opinion, he did not in any way, shape, or form conflict his position on the Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. This is a very confusing application. Did anybody, my package does not have the prior ZBA decision. Does anybody have it in their package?
I did. The one that he's talking, that he referenced, it's very short. It's one page that says that that there is a permit or variance granted for the residential property.
No decision, no discussion of the property?
Not really. Just it referenced, let me get it out here.
It was the last 2 pages of the application,
Yeah,
and it was
Yeah.
Court of Appeals case number 1049.
right. It says, that they're not going to enforce the requirements for setbacks. And because it would be a substantial financial hardship and its circumstances relating to the shape of the property. And granting this relief will not adversely affect the zoning districts. So but they could not meet the setback requirements in a residential area for the house that is behind the office he is discussing.
It also mentions the fact that the line was drawn incorrectly. I have it in front of me. If you'd like to read it into the record, I'll be glad to do that.
No, that's all right. I don't know. I have both the paper and the digital copy, and I don't have it. So I don't.
Yep.
It didn't make the digital copy.
Well, it was submitted with the application.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kenny. I appreciate that. Are there any members of the board want to have any questions? Mr. Kenny, I think this is a very confusing piece of property, and I listened to your presentation just now, and I had the benefit of having been there and seen the property, having described where the easements were. So I understood it all, but I'm not sure that anybody well, maybe people are smarter than I am, but I'm not sure it was apparent what's going on this property. If I could, let me just make some points, and then talk about a policy matter that I think this application raises, and I think we ought to talk about. First of all, I don't think the application is complete. I think we needed a better plot plan than we have. But if you take the plot plan that has variance from 16420 down the bottom of the page, you see the house is very close to Route 6A, the building we're talking about, the dental office. And then the driveway is there, and there's a easement from the residence in the back. That's the easement for the driveway, right? That easement is not is that an easement from the little house to the big house, or an easement?
That easement is from the house property to the office property. It is part of the property of the house.
Okay. Now, is that easement perpetual, or is there a limit to it?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's a permanent easement. It's not a
It's a
temporary.
permanent easement, yes.
And then there's an easement.
And it's on file in Barnstable.
Then there's an easement from the office building to the dwelling for the rest of another piece of the driveway, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
The way that driveway was pre-existing,
Yeah.
the way that easement plus the utility easements are set up is that either party can change them, but the party that wants to change them gets to pay for it.
Okay. And then not stated here, not visible here is the easement for the septic system.
That also was contained in my application.
Well, there's a
I made a copy of a larger plot plan.
yeah, that's kind of hard.
That show the north and south.
Yeah.
And that was there when I submitted it to the building department.
I have that, and that's looks to be a rectangular leaching chamber, it says, along almost on the property line. And then the septic plan. Okay, I guess I see that.
It highlighted the septic easement on that so it would be more visible.
Yeah,
But it was contained when it was submitted. Also, the plot plan that you're referring to, which is the small plot plan,
yeah,
that was the one given to me by the planning department of the town. I did not realize this was going to be a Zoom meeting. I suppose I should have realized that, but I have a copy of the larger plan that I was going to bring with me, thinking it was going to be an in-person meeting tonight, which is the same plan, but it's easier to see. But unfortunately, this is on Zoom.
so even in the beginning, this whole lot, before the subdivision, the whole lot was less than 40,000 square feet.
That is, it was close to it, but I think no, it was, if you add the two properties together, it comes out to be about 42,000 square feet for the entire property. But it has not been an entire property for 30 years.
Yeah,
That subdivision is not in question at this hearing. We're just ruling on the one property. The other property, 249, is an abutting property to the office property. I included it in the application to give the board the history of what had happened,
Yeah.
to conform to the application requests. Everything down below in the, I'm sitting in the house, so when I say below, I mean down at the office.
yeah,
Everything there is in its pre-existing condition dating back to 1947, except for the septic system, which was replaced, and the front deck, which was placed on the house, and the extension of the driveway going on up to the house.
so in the zoning code, and I refer to Tom on this, because we had a discussion about this. There is no guidance in the code as to lot minimums within a general business district. Is that correct? Residential lots within a general business district. Is that correct, Tom?
That is correct. This has been George Meservey and I have been through this several times. 40,000 square feet in 16420, it says that for each dwelling on a lot, there should be required 40,000 square feet. Feet of continuous upland as set forth in 16423 unless otherwise provided within this chapter. In 16423, minimum area of the lot when used for building purposes shall not be less than the minimum required by this chapter. For the district in which it's located, said lot shall not be interpreted to include any area below mean water level, fresh water, and below mean water on tidal water or within limits of any defined way, nor shall less than 40,000 square feet consist of continuous upland, exclusive of marsh, bog, and wetland. So I think George's, I was not around when this first came in, was that because 40,000 square feet is mentioned in those two sections, that he would need relief in the form of a variance. This new bylaw, when it went into effect, which is fairly recent, a little over a year, to allow single family homes or 1 to 2 family homes in general business, it's the first time it's really come up. And if you look under 16421, under general business, there is no minimum lot size. It refers you to actually the parking regulations by going to footnote 11,
Yeah.
which is the measurement is for gross floor area ratio, which I believe the dental office would probably meet, and also impervious surface coverage, which would probably also meet. So I would hope that if you do not grant the variance, that at the very least that you would allow Mr. Kinney, to withdraw without prejudice, because I'm going to take this, and I've talked to George about it, and try to go back to the planning board and find out what was meant here.
Right. Well, Tom, that raises a good, that's sort of where I've come down on this after thinking about it, that this is a new provision, and we never contemplated, it wasn't contemplated how we resolve this issue. But this is a 13,000 square foot parcel, which is pretty small. Mr. Kinney is right. The town wants affordable housing, and by virtue of its proximity to the highway, this will be permanently moderately priced, I'm certain. So it meets that goal. But then again, I don't know the town is comfortable with dividing up residential business lots into 13 square foot parcels with houses on them. You know, this is a tough case because the first case, I personally, I'm speaking just for myself, I personally would like to have some conversation with the planning department before we start creating $13,000 square foot residential properties. I'm not opposed to it. I think there's a public policy that may encourage that, but I'm a little reluctant to plow into that tonight without some discussion from the planning board.
I agree that this is what we have in front of us is pretty skimpy. And I'd also want to understand what the planning board intended. And a couple of questions I had. We would normally get, when somebody is converting something to residential, we would normally get a interior view of the building. And Mr. Kinney, you say, you know, nothing's going to be changed. We can move in from what was a dental office to a house. And how many bedrooms would be in this house?
The septage requirement seems to indicate there would be 3 bedrooms, which would basically be the 3 rooms that were used as operatories. As far as seeing the interior of the house, I would be more than happy, Ms. Eichel, to show it to you and see. I don't want to make a lot of major changes. This is for my wife and I to spend a few years. It very possibly will go back to commercial, and I don't want to destroy the commercial advantages that were built into it when it became a dental office. But essentially, the changes made when it went from residential to commercial were very minor. 2 doors, and then after the HIV scare and all those changes, we put in 1 partition for privacy's sake, and the interior lent itself very well to establishment of an office. And I think eventually that will be its best use. I might add that you are not creating a residential lot. You are maintaining a general business lot. You're building a residence on it, or you are converting an existing property on it to residential use. It is a change of use, but if that use were abandoned, it would revert immediately to general, it would revert, I believe, Tom, after a year to its original zoning.
So as for the septic system, if it's a 3-bedroom property and you're there, 2 people, but if there were more people, can the septic system handle it? And do we know that? And if not, what changes would have to be made? That was another thing I was confused about. I understand the septic easement, but it was unclear whether the septic is currently capable of handling it.
Yes, the dental office specifications were greater than my residential specifications. The Board of Health has not issued a ruling on this as yet. They would have, if you give the approval of placing the residence there, the Board of Health will have to sign off on it. And my wife and I are looking at the property. We'd kind of like to have 2 bedrooms. That we don't want to have more than that. That the the health department is going to have to rule on that, as I understand it.
Mr.
That is
Taub,
separate from the action you're taking.
Mr. Taub, your question?
Thank you. It seems to me that this application is a little premature for us to offer a competent opinion on, especially since we as a board are still dealing with the question of precedential value of decisions that we make and the possibility that this is a property that could revert or mightn't revert, et cetera, I think requires greater clarity than we are going to be able to get at this meeting. So I support the notion that the applicant be sent back, that we get a more complete, as we understand that term, and we could explain that if necessary, application that we have before us. For whatever reason it didn't happen, it doesn't matter, but that we have before us the plot plans. I tried to Google them as we were talking and was not able to. And that indeed we hear in some form from Mr. Meservey, who I notice is on the call, because when the town building department says that they're not clear, I'm not clear. Thank you for your time, sir.
I don't think it's appropriate to ask Mr. Meservey to talk here, but I agree.
No, I didn't intend by any means to suggest that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Matt and Emily, any comments?
Just jumping in. So I think getting the planning board's input is wise. If Board of Health approval is needed rather than simply the health department, that should precede our ruling. Generally, I'm in favor of creating another residential unit. I'd like to find a path to that doesn't include the variance path. So hopefully the planning board can help us with that. I think it's 2 different things to subdivide a lot less than 40,000 feet than it is to take an existing lot that's under 40,000 feet and allow a change of use. So I think that very matter of minimum lot size in that district should be clarified. So I appreciate Tom's offer to do that and then perhaps coming back here. So hopefully we can do this with a continuance and not with a withdrawal so that we keep this moving forward for the applicant.
Right. Emily, any comments?
I would also like to see just some additional information and a continuance as well.
Yeah, Mr. Kinney, the idea of having us jump through these hoops to have it a residential property within a general business district, and then saying, well, maybe it revert back later if the conditions make that more valuable. It doesn't warm my heart. We jump through all these new rules and maybe set a precedent on lot size and how this is done going forward, and then saying, well, maybe next year or the year after, I'm going to revert back to a general business. I'd like to have you come in and say, we want this because we want to keep it as a residential because, whatever the reason it is. If it's a temporary situation for you to solve a temporary housing problem you have, then revert back to general business. That doesn't move the board, frankly.
Well, I would say, God willing, I will be there. Okay? After I am gone, I don't know who would buy the property. I don't know what would happen in the future, but I'm sure nothing could happen on either of these properties of any substantial nature without it going before the board.
Well, I think we have a consensus, Mr. Kinney. We can take a vote on it, but the consensus of the board is that we continue this hearing for input and discussion with the planning department and Mr. Evers. And then I guess if it's decides, as Matt has indicated, if we're going to go forward with an application for a residential property, the rule of thumb here in town is that we're the last hurdle, and that we don't like to, especially in this case, set precedent that isn't going to be successful because the health board won't allow it. So I think we can continue this application, but if you're coming back, when we meet with the planning board, if we have communication with you to say, yeah, we'll reconsider it again, but we'd like you to have the Board of Health ruling on the septic system before we grant a variance. Have you followed me?
I follow you. I would make one request of the board, and that is to be very specific as to what additional information you need, because I have worked very hard to fulfill all the information as requested by the application. And so I need to know specifically what you want and what you need, including sizes, et cetera, et cetera. And I will work with Mr. Evers in the building department to see that your requests are met.